A Giants podcast for Giants fans
by Giants fans.
It's Shaun Morash.
On the sideline, into the end zone. Touchdown, Giants!
From the offseason to the wins and the losses, it's time to take one Giant step.
Welcome in to One Giant Step. As these words leave my mouth, I'm Shaun Morash. He's Bryce Gelman. This Giant season is so bad it dawned on me, I don't even know what week it is. Week 15? Is it the Week 15 preview pod?
It is.
Okay,
yes,
it's the Week 15 preview
it
pod.
Is,
There's 4 weeks left in the NFL season. The Giants are an enormous underdog to the Baltimore Ravens. In fact, the number now sits at about 16.5. And even before the line moved from the lock to DeVito news, the Giants are the biggest home underdog they have been since the 1966 season. And you can only imagine 1966. Those numbers involved a lot of people doing shady stuff in barbershops with their deals. Now we have at least have the legalized gambling everywhere. But 1966 was the last time the Giants were this big an underdog at home. And that includes, by the way, a Week 17 game versus the undefeated New England Patriots in 2007. They weren't even this big an underdog. Meaning, in this preview pod, in this game that we're about to talk about, if the Giants were to win this football game, it would, in fact, for most of you, be the biggest upset in New York Giants history, and that includes beating an undefeated team eventually in a Super Bowl. Now, again, they might have been a bigger underdog on the road, but there's no way they would have won that game because that would have come up by now. That is how big an underdog the Giants are this year, Bryce. So it's got to make you feel good in your feels, huh?
Oh, I'm hyped, man. I've never been more hyped for a game in my entire life. My best friend is a huge Ravens fan. He's coming down, not for the game, but that's going to be enjoyable to watch that one. We're going to get into it, but it's not going to be fun. It's not.
Just remember to tell him before 2 weeks ago, the only quarterback in the NFC to ever beat the Baltimore Ravens was beat Lamar Jackson's Baltimore Ravens was Daniel Jones. So that happened 2022. Remember, the Baltimore Ravens was part of the Joe Judge slide year. The Giants played at home that year versus the Ravens, I think, or maybe it was on the road. And that game was horrible too. It was either a Fromm or Glennon game. The Giants have had some bad Ravens moments. Of course, Super Bowl 35 as well. But nonetheless, it's a game they're going to have to approach, and let's get into a little bit of here. But first, a little news and notes. I was at the New York Knicks game on Wednesday night, and Shedeur Sanders got introduced to the crowd, and it started with if you've ever been to a Knick or Ranger game, right, they show the highlight of somebody coming up, whether it's an actor or some kind of funny line, and it was a touchdown in the Colorado game. And at first, I'm thinking Travis Hunter must be here already for the Heisman ceremony, and instead it was Shedeur Sanders who got a major hand. And I thought that was cool. I thought that was a fun moment. It doesn't mean the Giants end up with Shedeur Sanders, but for any commentary out there about Shedeur Sanders doesn't want to be in New York, his dad's going to dictate, well, put one and one together. He at least got a taste of going to a Knicks game and got a raucous ovation that he would not get if he was the Raider quarterback. You only get that ovation if you're the Giant or Jet quarterback. So
come on, you don't think Shedeur Sanders and Dion by extension want to be in New York, even as incompetent as the Giants franchise looks right now? Come on.
Well, did you hear the Nevin Shapiro audio, Bryce? We played it back on Evan and Tiki. Nevin Shapiro is a big time booster at Miami, and he's gotten into a lot of legal trouble. Was a big Ponzi scheme guy, not a great person, but very well connected with Miami football. Big booster for them. He was on with Pac-Man Jones. I mean, just, the script writes itself.
Can't make it up,
on his podcast, and said he has gotten it from very reliable people that have been down in Miami that Dion and Shedeur want the Raiders. They want to basically push the draft that way, and that the Giants are heavily invested in Cam Ward. And if they do draft Cam Ward, they would then hire Miami's offensive coordinator to come up and help bridge the learning gap, which I thought was the most interesting part of it because we expect Kafka to be gone. But does that mean the OC becomes the OC with the Giants? I think Dable would still call plays. Or does the OC become the quarterback coach? Either way, if you're going to support a quarterback, I have no problem bringing in one of his college coaches to try to help ease that transition, if that makes sense. So I just thought that part of it was interesting. I say that to say, the other part of Shedeur and Dion, the Raiders, he shows up at this Knicks game and the crowd's going nuts. And that had to have felt because he stood up. He was pumping up the crowd. So you can't tell me he totally is anti-New York. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Instead, the Giants do have a quarterback they got to play on Sunday here, Bryce. And that, as we know, will be Tommy DeVito now. Tommy DeVito is back. Drew Lock is in a boot. And the wheels just keep on spinning. And I think the Giants basically are like us wrapping presents at this time of year. They're just putting scotch tape on top of a bunch of seams and hoping they come out of this thing alive, specifically the coaching staff. So I think this sucks for Tommy DeVito. This is my declarative statement on Tommy DeVito starting on Sunday. I think this sucks for him. I think it's brutal that now we are going to be in a 4-game span where Tommy DeVito will get 2 starts and Drew Lock will get 2 starts. And Drew Lock's 2 starts clearly came against non-playoff crappy teams. Tommy DeVito's starts came against a good team in the Bucs and a Super Bowl contender in the Ravens. And the first Bucs start happened on, a week where inexplicably the Giants emotionally had to deal with all the, I can't believe we let Daniel Jones go, and they were distraught stuff. And now we're going to deal with a Raven team off the bye where they're a 3-score underdog. I think that's brutal for him. Now, you might be calling me crazy. Maybe you'll call me crazy, Bryce. It's an opportunity to start a game in the NFL. So you can't feel too bad for a guy, right? Like that is how many people would dream of doing that. It's an opportunity to start a quarterback for the New York Football Giants in the NFL. But I just fear the Giants are going to get walloped in this game. And we're going to come out of this going, geez, the last 2 times we saw DeVito, the team got blown out and we're despondent. Your thoughts?
The one thing on his side is there's no pressure and there's no expectations. What's the pressure here? You want the Giants to lose at the end of the day. The crowd is going to be rooting for the Giants to lose. There will be a lot of Ravens fans at this game. A lot.
Well, there'll be pressure from the coaching staff. I mean, look, they're still trying to.
But how real is that? Realistically, you know what I mean? Like how?
I mean, Gable's going to coach off in this game.
Now, I get that. I get that. He's going to be expected to play a good game.
Dable knows obviously the team needs a quarterback to change, but Dable also knows but I want to be here for that quarterback.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I get it. But I just don't think it's the be all end all in terms of like his NFL future. Well, this is going to be a tough game. Like there's if they lose by 15 points, it's like okay, like good. It wasn't 25
for that.
It wasn't 30. That's the thing. So DeVito's ceiling in this game is not that high. So if he plays pretty mediocre, 200 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, okay, not a bad game. He's playing.
By the way, I'm not expecting
role
that.
with the Giants. He's
if that's
just
what
like
he
was last year. He's playing for the role of backup quarterback with the Giants. Okay, there's not much expectation.
This is my fear with that, though, dude. So first of all, he didn't get the ball to neighbors nearly enough. They didn't control time of possession versus the Bucs game. That is clearly a priority here. It's getting him involved. The offensive line is even worse now with Jonathan Runyon out. I mean, how many more pieces can you lose? This looks like the last preseason game of the year. But here's the deal, man. We will always remember 2023 New York Giants football as the DeVito year. He had the win streak. Everybody was doing the gabagool thing. Everybody was into it. Now, everything that you start to lose a little bit of the shine, right? He played versus the Bucs, you lost. He plays versus the Ravens and they get obliterated in this game. They might go back to Drew Lock the next week, and this is like the last we hear from DeVito. And then you go into an offseason where, we don't know if the coach is definitely going to be here. And if the coach is he going to definitely have Tommy DeVito on this team? Like, I don't know. And also, the thirst for the fans. How many fans on a cold Sunday afternoon where the team stinks and they're 16.5-point underdogs are trekking to MetLife Stadium? It's an easy ride for Ravens fans to get up there. Okay. And are you buying a ticket if you're a Giant fan to see Tommy DeVito anymore? And if you're not from DeVito's high school or DeVito's family, probably not. That was a thing last year. People started to buy in. So I don't think there's the juice for Tommy DeVito now. I think that's dead and gone, and I think it'll officially be buried. And I think the folk hero that was Tommy DeVito, while we'll always remember 2023, maybe not so fondly if Drake May and Jaden Daniels become Hall of Fame quarterbacks, I think you kind of get an unfair distaste for Tommy DeVito if every game he starts to play now is one of these games where the team is just so non-competitive versus an opponent. So I hate that for DeVito's fun legacy. Well, you're going to wham me all you want. It's week 15. The team stinks. I'm just giving you a little opinion here on what's going on with DeVito.
Who cares, Sean? Who cares?
Then why are we doing a pod, Bryce? Yeah. What do you mean, who cares? This is the story this week.
We care. We care. But who cares about Tommy DeVito and his legacy with the Giants? His legacy, Sean, no matter what ends up happening with Jaden Daniels, no matter what happens with Drake May, is going to be of a quarterback who came in and won meaningless games and got everyone hyped up with this stupid signal.
But had he played versus Dallas and New Orleans and the team was tight games, you look at this a little differently. You're going to look at a 4-game sample size. They play tight lock. They didn't play tight with DeVito.
Lost 30-7 to the Bucs. That's going to be his legacy. Is losing the Bucs, and that's where all the juice died. Is getting blown out by.
Do you think it's already dead? That's your point. Is it doesn't matter?
Yeah,
anyway.
100%. It's dead. It was. I think it was dead after they got blown out by the Bucs. A team that, when you look at the, who else the Giants were going to face later on in the year, that was looked at as a pretty easy game. The Bucs had obviously had a lot to prove in that game. I believe they were 5-6, 5-7 going into that game. Still kind of in the playoff race. They needed to win that game. They won that game handedly. They ran all over the Giants. Tommy DeVito did not look good. So it was dead then. I have no sympathy. I have no empathy, whatever the correct word is there. Who knows? For Tommy DeVito. And especially in this day and age where, we feel sympathy for the wrong people. Like the guy is an NFL quarterback. If you watched him my freshman year at Syracuse, you would never have said this guy will play a single snap in the NFL. He made it to the NFL. He got endorsement deals. He went to Bubba Coos Burritos in my hometown where there was a line out the door. That's his legacy. Congratulations. Most people don't get to experience that. He got to play for his hometown team. He got fans fired up to the stadium. He got his old manager at the time famous. He got his family famous. His dad is now recognizable on the WFAN ads and not just some random guy, some random Italian. You know him now. You know what I'm talking about. We heard those ads before. He was airing ads on the Fan before his son ever played a snap for the Giants. That is a success story in and of itself. He is going to get his run over the last 4 games. I don't know if Locke's going to come back with the heel. Who knows? If all goes, I'm not going to say well, but if all goes so, DeVito will play these last 4 games, and he will get an opportunity that 80% of 95% of college quarterbacks, maybe even more, don't get in his life. So miss me with that sympathy. I don't know.
Oh, point is, people cared about him. Now they won't. Now, other people we might care about, Tyler Nubin out for the year. They've put him on IR. That stinks. I have heard speculation Drew Phillips might be getting surgery. He could be done very soon. We'll see. Maybe that's an end of the year thing. It really sucks not seeing rookies finish out the year because that's the only thing you really want to care and see. Also, losing Trey Hawkins. Did you see the injury that Trey Hawkins ended up with? Yeah, lumbar spine fracture. He finally has a chance to play, has a good game, has an interception. That, by the way, he would have been going into year 3 next year. And not that you think he's Champ Bailey by any, but kind of like the DeVito of quarterbacks, right? I would have liked to see him play more, so at least you have some value and some depth at corner. What really sucks about lost years is that at least in lost years, you get to watch some young players continue to play. And that pool of players is diminishing for the Giants. And basically it's down to, can Neighbors and Tyrone Tracy do anything without an offensive line and out a quarterback that makes you care and watch them play football? Can they? Because, okay, Thibodeau had a sack. I'm good with Thibodeau and Burns, but I've seen enough of them. I wanted to get a thirst for more Neighbors, more Nubin, more Phillips. That part of it sucks, man. Finding reasons to watch this team play is few and far between the last 4 weeks. And it's four games as I hold it up.
You got Elijah Chapman, you got Deontay Johnson. These are your guys. If you
know what, I shouldn't say, oh God, because I may have to throw bouquets at their feet on Sunday night. So
do you remember preseason how hyped we were about Deontay Johnson coming in? He misses basically the entire season. So at least we'll get to watch him and see what the future is at middle linebacker. But it's I know it's few and far between. It sucks. And this is, we said it last week. I said it last week. I know. Best case scenario with the injuries. There's an excuse to tank. They're not officially tanking, but guys are hurt. All right. It is what it is.
We're going to give you now. We're going to, I think, feel the pulse of the people with Giants fans and understand your attention span for Giants football. your attention span for Giants football doesn't call for 45 minutes on a podcast. We've chopped up this game for 15 minutes, so we got to do fantasy versus reality now. I think that's only fair to the audience.
100%.
We're in a week where everybody's dealing with baseball signings. So we're giving you a little giant taste here. All right, here's your fantasy. You know the deal. If you're a new listener, we give you a player prop or some kind of fantasy play you might be interested with the Giants, which is not easy to do on the lowest scoring offense in football by any means. The reality of if and how the Giants can somehow win this football game, how that can happen. Mind you, they're the biggest home underdog they've been since 1966. And an official game prediction. So this week's going to be a doozy with this segment. I mean, a real hootenanny, as they like to say. All right. Okay. Since it's a hootenanny, I could give you Malik Neighbors and know that they're going to try to target him. I could give you Tyrone Tracy and know they're going to want to run the hell out of the ball. I'm not going to do those things for you. If I'm going to sit here, I'm going to get on the platform. We know those are the only two guys worth watching. I'm going to throw some darts here for you. I'm going to try to make you some money here. I think the Giants are going to score a touchdown in this game, at least one, in the DeVito era. And I don't think Tyrone Tracy or Malik Neighbors are going to be the ones that score that touchdown. I'm giving you, not to start in fantasy, even though it's fantasy versus reality, I'm giving you a long-form dart that you get a great price and anytime touchdown for on Sunday morning. Give me Greg Dulcich to score a touchdown for the New York Giants. The tight end they claimed from Denver a couple weeks ago, he finally got on the field last week, okay? We saw him split out at least once or twice, so it shows me they're trying to show some flexibility. If they have one of these drives like they had last week where they run the ball enough, Malik Neighbors makes a crazy catch, they get down inside the red zone. Remember, Tommy DeVito still had the ability to roll out, throw. Remember the touchdown to Hodgins versus Green Bay last year? You could talk about Wandell, you could talk about Slayton. We don't have Theo Johnson anymore. And I think that Brian Dable also, why did you claim a Greg Dulcich? You want to see what you got, right? That's a former third-round pick. I think they're going to get him involved in the red zone. So clip this, get it ready. My fantasy play for the New York Giants is none of the obvious guys. I think Greg Dulcich is their touchdown scorer on Sunday. That's where I'm going fantasy-wise. Now, the reality of the game. The reality of the game is I really don't think it's a reality the Giants can win the game at all. But I'll play along for the sanctity of the segment. Last week, they were in the game because they got an interception. I think that they need to just hit Lamar Jackson like they did a couple of years ago. I think Burns and Thibodeau have to combined have their most insane game as a duo yet. Like, I don't even think that's a crazy thing to say. If Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau are just wreaking havoc on the edge, the times Lamar Jackson panic loses games is when he throws a bad interception or two. He takes those hits and he starts getting a little hesitant on the runs. I think the Giants are going to have a hard time controlling Derrick Henry. But remember this, the Ravens this year have kind of made a concerted effort. Derrick Henry, for as many yards as he has, and I know this because I gamble on enough of these games, there are lulls in games where it's like the Ravens pull the ropes back on Derrick Henry a little bit and don't let him go full bore. And I think it was the idea of preserving him for the postseason stretch. The Ravens know these are the New York Giants. They know they can get by with plenty of Justice Hill moments. So I don't even think Derrick Henry is necessarily going to completely kill the Giants in this game. It won't mean he won't have 2 touchdowns, but I don't think Derrick Henry is going to have this 175-yard game, something like that. So if that's the case, I think they're going to make Lamar Jackson try to make some plays down the field a little bit. So the reality of the game is force turnovers and just pummel the hell out of him with Thibodeau and with Burns. Will they be able to do that? Probably not. But that's just like your pie in the sky, biggest upset of the year, how it happens. That's how it would have to happen. Now, what's going to actually happen? I think it's going to be ugly. I think it's going to look worse than the Eagle game. I don't like that Runyon's out now. I think DeVito is going to be curled up taking sacks all day long. I think the Giants will find a way to score 9 points in this game. How are they going to score 9 points? They're going to score a touchdown to Dulcich, and they're going to miss the extra point, but they're also going to kick a field goal, okay? On the flip side, the defense is going to play hard, but the will's going to be broken. I think the Giants lose this game 34-9. And I think it's going to be bad. It's going to be ugly, and you're going to be getting the post-game press conferences asking about Dable's job again. Bryce, to you.
That was fun. This is about to be even more fun. I hate that you went Dulcich because I'm going the other tight end for my fantasy play here. Daniel Bellinger, guy who was really gotten the short end of the stick here. Listen, I love him. I love Daniel Bellinger. I'm a big Daniel Bellinger guy. 5 catches.
I have a Bellinger jersey, by the way. I'm the only one.
That's great. That's insane. I mean, that is really insane. 5 catches for 45 yards last week, Shaun. I think he keeps it going. I think he keeps it up. I think what? Yeah.
Bro, I watched that whole game.
5 catches for 45 yards.
Miserable. If you were to say, hey, guess this stat line, 5 for 45, who was it? I would have never guessed Bellinger.
Just shows you, like, it's almost impossible to be locked into this team right now.
Yeah.
Like, things kind of slip through the cracks.
I'm almost disappointed with myself. I didn't realize that.
Oh. 5 catches for 45 yards against the Saints last week. Daniel Bellinger, he'll catch a touchdown. I don't know about Dulcich. You said they put him wide right. They put him wide, 5 times? He got 5 snaps in the game. You think he's going to catch a touchdown?
I think they're going to work him in more. I think the playbook another week here.
We'll see about that. That's highly unlikely. In this spare time, can you look up what his touchdown, if they even offer it? I'm guessing plus 500, more, plus 800.
Let me know. 800. I'm trying to look.
Dulcich touchdown. But I think it's.
I don't even know if it's listed yet. It'll be listed Sunday. Trust me.
I don't know about that. I don't even know about that.
Yes, it will be. Everybody gets listed. By the way, Sunday morning, FanDuel's looking to take all your money. Believe me, and they're not a sponsor. They will list that. I'll find it.
Should be a sponsor at this point. No,
by the way, they don't have any anytime touchdowns listed for the Giant game yet. They're probably waiting for today's injury report.
All right. Well, we'll see. But yeah, I think Bellinger. Bellinger. I said this a few weeks ago when Theo Johnson, before he got hurt, that these young quarterbacks who don't have a great offensive line, when they're looking for bailouts, they're looking for their best receivers and they're looking for the tight end, no matter how good the tight end is. And I really like Daniel Bellinger. I'm a fan of him. So take Bellinger, his over props. I think that could be, and like, no gambling advice here, but it could be a safe bet potentially. Now, how the Giants win this game, Lamar Jackson has to have the worst game of his career. He needs to have 3 interceptions. He needs to have a fumble. Derrick Henry needs to have 2 yards per rush. So many things could go wrong for the Ravens, and they will still win this game handedly. Like, they could turn the ball over 3 or 4 times and still win by double digits, Shaun. I really don't trust the Giants offense with the injuries that they have to move the ball, to put the ball into the end zone. So, listen, this is going to take it an absolute miracle. And it would be the biggest upset, as you said, at home since, did they win that game? They probably didn't win that game in the 1960s because it was such a crazy line.
Didn't even get
probably
that far.
Not. Yeah.
Probably not.
So this would be, by default, the biggest upset in Giants history. It's a damn shame that they're this big of underdogs at home. This is one of the best teams in the NFL. I think what happens in this game is the best team running the ball. They average the most yards per rush against the third worst against the run in the league, 30th in allowing yards per rush. They run the ball all over the Giants. And I agree with you with the sentiment that it's not going to be Derrick Henry, because I think this game is going to be out of reach pretty early on. I think this could be a big Justice Hill game. Big Justice Hill game. That's my fantasy name. And I refuse to drop him at this point of the year because I need to keep that name.
I love it.
They will win this game 30-12. I think that it's not going to be as big of a blowout as some people are expecting, mostly because I believe in the Giants to not let it get completely out of hand. I know they lost 30-7 against the Buccaneers, and that was a terrible game. But the Giants were kind of close the majority of that game. I feel like, they really never had a chance, but it wasn't like it was a blowout from the start. I don't know. I think the Giants kick 4 field goals. I don't think they get into the end zone. I don't.
I'm shocked you think they're going to have 4 scoring opportunities, to be honest with you.
I think they'll get the ball down the field because at the end of the day, as you mentioned with the whole Derrick Henry thing, the Ravens have a lot more to play for later on this year. They might play down in the competition here, Shaun. They have a lot of one-score games, albeit against teams that are way better than the Giants, but they tend to keep games close. They give their opponents potential to win the game. They'll give them chances repeatedly, time and time again. So 30-12, Giants lose, and we continue this tanking journey, Shaun.
What an uplifting podcast, just so amazing. Uplifting on every level. Truly amazing. But that's where we are. Look, we appreciate all of our listeners. Thank you so much for tuning in again to One Giant Step. At Bryce Gelman on Twitter and X. At Shaun Morash on Twitter and X. So here's the deal. We have 4 more recap pods coming. 3 more preview pods coming, and then the offseason coming. And the offseason is really where you're going to want to download and subscribe. Me and Bryce are going to try to map out the offseason, where we stand, whether that means solo pods from either of us, whether that means what our duos are going to be, setting up kind of what's going to go on here, draft quarterback wise. Well, obviously that first week have a reaction to exactly what the Giants' decision is on GM and coach, stay, go. If they do let these guys go and then this becomes a search, we're obviously going to react to all those names and drop the pods there. I say this to say, like, this offseason is as unpredictable an offseason as the Giants could have, both in terms of player additions with free agency money, the draft, and who knows with the coaching and GM situation as well. So we're in a rhythmic time, right? You get this pod whenever you listen to it in your normal times, Friday mornings, Friday afternoons, nights, Saturday mornings. Like, whenever you listen to the pod previewing the games, that's great. Whenever you listen to the reaction pods, we think that's awesome. We think that's great. The truth is, in terms of consistency, the offseason is anything but consistent outside of the actual draft dates and when free agency starts. So download and subscribe, because we may not drop a pod on the normal 2-day cycle that we've been dropping in the regular season. And this is just, I'm going to continue to alert the audience to this over the next couple of weeks, because this offseason is going to come before you know it. You're going to blink. The holidays are going to be here. The season's going to end. And if you've been locked in, we appreciate it. But you're going to be wondering, oh, where's my one giant step? What are they going to talk about this? Well, that will appear wherever you get your podcasts if you download and subscribe. So that's my big sales pitch to you. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas and happy holidays. All right. Thank you to everybody. Let's enjoy some bad football on Sunday. Thanks for taking one giant step with us.